Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Aquarium Online Academy. My name is Amanda, and I'm coming to you live from the Aquarium of the Pacific in Long Beach, California. And I'm so happy that you decided to join me today as we look into and discover more about the world of the giant Pacific octopus and octopus in general. Now, I would love to hear from you if you're on the other side of that camera watching, and if you have any questions or comments that you'd like to contribute during the program. You can actually contact us at the number that you see on the screen. If you're watching this live, you can contact us at 562-286-1838 and text in any questions or comments that you have. Now, if you're watching this at a later time after this has aired, you are welcome to also email us any questions you may have at the email that's on your screen at live@lbaop.org, and we have education staff who can respond to that at a later time. So either way, you're welcome to participate along with us today. So we're going to be exploring more about the octopus. Now, an octopus is an animal that is fascinating. People are fascinated with the octopus. And we have actually a few octopuses here at the aquarium. And when people come and they ask about the octopus, this is always one of the these exhibits that they love to stand in front of and just look at and watch for a while. Sometimes it can be hard to find the octopus in some of the exhibits, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the class too. But again, contact us if you have any questions that you'd like to know about the octopus. But let's go ahead and start by discovering what type of animal this really is. What is an octopus? What kind of animal is it? Obviously, it is an animal, it's not a plant, but take a look at it and what kinds of things do you notice about it? What stands out to you if you were a scientist looking at this animal and maybe you had never seen it before? Maybe it's the first thing you've ever stumbled across that looks like this. What would be some things that would stand out to you that would make you say, huh, I don't think it's this type of animal. Maybe it's closer to this one. What are those characteristics? What things are you seeing right now that kind of stand out to you? For instance, would you say that this is very similar to a bird? What kinds of characteristics do birds have? Well, of course, they have feathers and they fly. I certainly don't see any feathers or wings on this particular animal. Well, what about a dog or a cat? What do they have all over their body? Well, they're covered with hair. Do you see any hair on this animal? No hair. So definitely not a mammal. Well, where does it live? You don't find it flying in the sky. It's underwater, right? So that's one thing that we might need to think about as a scientist. Say, okay, well, this is an animal that lives underwater. So what other special types of adaptations, things that help the animal to survive, would we need to know more about? What would they need to have if they lived underwater? Well, certainly they need to have a way to breathe, right? But there are lots of animals that live underwater that have many different ways of breathing. Some of them breathe right through their skin. Some of them have to come to the surface to breathe, like whales and dolphins. And some have the ability to breathe in the water on their own underneath the water. Now, if you look at this animal, what do you think it uses to breathe? And this is kind of a hard question to start off with. We could make so many other observations about this animal, but I want you to be thinking in the back of your head about some of the things that maybe aren't as easily observable. So like breathing, where is this animal going to breathe from? And that's something we can look for. So if you're breathing, that has to have a way to get into your body. Now, I'll just tell you right away, this is not an animal like a sea jelly that can just basically breathe through its skin. It does have something that it uses to help it breathe. The question is, does it have lungs or does it have, what do fish have to help them breathe? Gills. Do octopuses have gills or do they have lungs? Well, what do you see right here? This is kind of a strange thing. If maybe you have no idea, like, I don't know, it's something that's opening and closing. But notice it's opening and closing with a pattern. And yeah, this is evidence of the octopus breathing. Now, do you see any bubbles coming out? I don't see any bubbles, so it's probably not gas or air. So it must be breathing the water. So what is this thing? Is that the mouth? Is that the mouth of where the octopus is? Because it kind of looks like an opening, like a mouth. But no, this is a special opening. It'll open and close to help the octopus breathe. It goes into the inside of its body, but not to its mouth and digestive system necessarily, because the octopus does have a separate mouth on its body. In fact, this right here is called the siphon. So a siphon is what the octopus uses to bring water into their body to help them breathe, and then also to exhale and to get things out. Now, a siphon is a path for water to go in, water to come out, but it's not just water that goes in and out of the siphon of an octopus. Can you think of anything else that might need to go in or out of an octopus besides its food? Because that's going to be in a separate area we'll explore later. What else comes out of an octopus? Does anyone know? Well, to help me out here, I have my friend Carrie, who's sitting at the computer, who's actually responding and writing down any text messages that are coming in, and she's writing them on a board. So I see she's writing things down, and she'll bring them to me. And also my friend James, or Stewie, we call him, is here in the studio, and he's helping give these great video, these images for us to see and look at today. So here's another picture right here of the siphon. So you can see the octopus is breathing, but we do have some questions coming in. I still want you to be thinking about what could come out of an octopus besides just the extra water that it's breathing. We have a question saying, how big is an average adult octopus? Now that's a great question, but there are so many different types of octopuses, it varies a whole lot. So some octopuses are quite small, like the two-spotted octopus that we have here in Southern California and can be found easily off our coast. They don't get very big. They're about maybe this size, even at their biggest stage. But then we have animals like this one here, the giant Pacific octopus, and we have one at the aquarium named Godzilla. Now, Godzilla right now was actually just recently weighed and was weighed at 42 pounds. And that's up 12 pounds from what Godzilla weighed back in May. So let's see, May, June, July, August, September. So just in 4 months, it's already gained 12 pounds. Hopefully not a diet I'm going to be on anytime. But they can get even bigger than that. So a giant Pacific octopus could potentially get like 16 feet long from one arm to the other. And they could weigh up to, what is it? About 150 pounds. So that's really big and really heavy. So that means Godzilla has some ways to go if it wants to get to be one of the biggest giant Pacific octopuses out there. So good question. So it can range a lot depending on the type of octopus you're talking about. But the giant Pacific octopus, like you see here, is the largest, and they can get up to 150 pounds. Another question is, does an octopus have a sense of smell? Ooh, I have to actually think about that for a second. And remember if they do or if they don't, because they are very, very good at finding their prey. But you know what? And I'm going to ask Stewie to help me out with this, because I want to say they do. Okay, so he is saying they have a sense of smell. Okay, so it's going to be related. So, okay, here's where it gets tricky. It's with their sense, it kind of goes along with their sense of taste. And I think that's why I'm not sure the best way how to answer this. Because what you're seeing here, what do you notice? What stands out to you in this video right now? Well, I see a lot of round suction cups all over the arms of this animal. Those suction cups are what the octopus uses to taste. And so our sense of taste and our sense of smell go kind of hand in hand. It's really hard to taste your food if you've got your nose plugged. Have you ever tried that before? I do it all the time. If there's something that you don't like the taste of, if you plug your nose and you try not to breathe while you're eating it, it makes it a lot easier to eat those things. Well, an octopus can actually taste their food by putting a suction cup on top of it. So they don't have to put it inside their mouth. And so having that sense of taste also combines with their sense of smell. So somehow their smell and taste are going hand in hand within those suction cups. So that's really unique and very interesting about an octopus. Can you imagine what that would be like if we had those same adaptations and everywhere we went that we put our hand on, we could taste it? Now, that might be really nice if you went to a place like Baskin Robbins where you could taste all these different types of ice cream just by putting your hand on it. But then, of course, no one else would want to have that ice cream after your hands have been all over it. But it'd be a really great way to taste everything without having to put it in your mouth. But at the same time, I don't think I'd want to taste everything I touched. But that's what an octopus does. So, a little window into the life of an octopus. Another question is, why do octopus have webbing between their tentacles? Oh, that was a good observation. So you can kind of see right here in between their arms. So we refer to these as arms. And as you might know already, an octopus has 8 arms, octo for 8. And between their arms, you can kind of see right here, it is kind of webbed and helps them to, it kind of connects, there you can see them kind of connecting their arms together. So while they do have very long arms that can stretch out, they are connected. And think about, how does webbing work for an animal? What kinds of animals can you think of that have webbing? Most likely, unless you're thinking of a bat, because they can use them for flying in the sky, right? They have webbing between their, to help them fly. But other animals that have webbing usually live in the water, and they work to help them push through the water and get through them. So look at how this animal's moving. Take a look at how it's using its arms to move. So it definitely can kind of step and kind of crawl all over the place using its arms. But there's also something else. Now, getting back to that siphon that we were talking about earlier. Remember how we said things can go in and out of that siphon? The water goes in to help it breathe. Well, water also goes in and out of them, not just for breathing, but also to help them move. Can you think of any way that an octopus could use a siphon to help them move through the water? Well, think about blowing up a balloon. If you blow up a balloon, you blow it up through that opening in the balloon, it gets bigger. You keep your finger on it, and you've got this big, nice balloon full of air. Well, if you let go of that balloon, what happens? As that air escapes out of the balloon, it's being forced out of the balloon, what happens to the balloon? Yeah, the balloon takes off, goes flying everywhere. Well, the octopus can kind of do that with its siphon and water. So instead of using air to propel itself, it's using what we call jet propulsion. So here's an example of a squid. This is a relative of an octopus. Notice it has a little siphon that sticks out right there. And this long part here is called the mantle. An octopus has a mantle too. It's a little bit different, but it also brings in water, and then it squirts it out through the siphon, because as the water is being squirted out, or let's see, point the right direction, as the water is going this way, it's causing the octopus or the squid to go the opposite direction. So it's pulling in water, squirting it out through the siphon, and then it causes them to go the other way. Now, that also means that if they want to be able to steer what direction they're going, they need to be able to steer that siphon. Do you think they can do that? Absolutely. They can even change the side of the body that the siphon's on. They only have one siphon. And if you take a picture of an octopus, you might see the siphon kind of sticking out on this side, but then you come back later, you look at it again, and it might be over here on the other side. So they can move this siphon around up underneath their mantle and point it in whatever direction they want to be swimming to get away. So the way that they move around is by using their arms. Yes, they can do that, but also by using that siphon. And then they bring their arms all kind of together, and having that extra webbing in there is going to help them in getting around and moving around. So thank you for that question, because that kind of helped us to learn a little bit more about how the octopus lives. So let's see. We have some more questions coming in. Let me get out of the way so I can read these a little bit better too, and maybe adjust my microphone. So Caleb wants to know, does anything else come out of their gills? Yes, because I've been asking this, right? I've been saying, what else? And yes, there is something else. And Annabelle and Devin are guessing maybe ink comes out. And Annabelle and Devin, you are absolutely right. Ink comes out. So that is something else. And also somebody mentioned poop comes out. That is the other thing. We'll call it waste. So they can expel waste from their bodies through the siphon. So water comes out to help them breathe. Water comes out to help them move. Waste comes out because once you eat, you have to get the waste out of your body. So that comes out through the siphon. And then also their ink. And why would they want to squirt out ink? You can probably guess. Oh, and here's a great picture. Watch that siphon and watch how it switches it to the other side. And what happens? Whoa, do you see that ink? Well, and look at what this octopus is doing right now. It's kind of hiding. It looks like it's trying to hide, maybe protect itself from something that it thought was a danger. Maybe it was this person who's right here underwater with scuba gear and a big old camera trying to get a closer look at the octopus. So maybe the octopus felt a little bit threatened by that and wasn't sure what was going on and so wanted to distract the predator or the threat, in that case being the person with the camera, and say, hey, if I squirt out ink this direction, maybe you'll get so distracted and you'll think that maybe almost like someone disappearing in a cloud of smoke, like a magician, like poof. And then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, there's this smoke everywhere. What's going on? And then the next thing you know, the magician is gone. They've disappeared. Well, that's kind of like what an octopus can do with that ink. Sometimes the ink can actually get into the eyes of the animal so they can't see, or into their nose so they can't smell where the octopus is gone. Or sometimes it is just such a big distraction that the animal thinks that that ink is the octopus, and they go after the ink instead. So let's watch that again. So there you can see the siphon, and it's going to switch it to the other side, and the octopus says, oh, wait, look at that. And so while your eyes are going over to where the ink is, maybe you're not noticing, well, wow, this octopus is kind of hiding and getting away and squeezing into that really small space. Now, how is the octopus able to squeeze into a space that small? Now, I don't know if you've ever played hide and seek before, and maybe you've had an idea of a great spot to hide, but then you look at it, you're like, oh, you try to fit into it, and you're like, I just can't fit. Like, I really want to fit in that space, but I'm just too big, and I've got these bones that get in the way that I can't, like, squeeze my legs in. Octopuses don't have that problem because they don't have any bones. Their entire body is boneless, and so they're very, very flexible, making it very easy for them to hide into this space right here. So think about what it would be like if you didn't have any bones. You wouldn't be able to stand up straight and tall like this, but you could like spread out and squeeze through really small places. In fact, there's only one hard part on the octopus's body. Do you know what it is? I'm going to let you think about that for a second while I look at some of these other questions that have come in. So I'll let you watch this video as well. So some other questions, Caleb was asking, does anything else come out of their gills? And we did say that yes, the waste and the ink does. And then how do you weigh the octopus? Ooh, that's another really good question, because think about how squirmy these octopus look. Does it look like it would be easy to get those to sit still for us on a scale? Well, not so much, but we do have a very special way of weighing them. And I don't know if we have access to this, if we have this available to us on the computer anywhere to see. We'll see if we can find something. And then also someone wants to know, where do giant Pacific octopus live? And so the giant Pacific octopus lives in the cold water areas, usually the North Pacific. You don't usually see too many down here. Our water is a little bit too warm for them in Southern California, but our octopuses that we've had, our giant Pacific octopuses, have come from like Vancouver and Washington, those areas up there. So a little bit further north is where they tend to be found. And they do prefer, the other question is, do they prefer colder or warmer water? So they do prefer the colder water, but that's not all octopuses. So some octopuses live in tropical water. So there's one called the blue spotted or the blue ringed octopus. The blue ringed octopus is actually a venomous octopus that you would not want to be bitten by, but they live in warmer areas in tropical regions, so not around here. And then someone was asking, where is the mouth? Which leads me to the other question that I just asked about what other part on their body might be hard. Do they have any hard parts? Because there's only one that I said. What is that hard part? Well, it is the beak. So the beak is a hard part. And so as long as an opening is big enough for the octopus to fit their beak through it, they can fit their entire rest of their body through it. So think with me, for let's say a giant Pacific octopus like the size of our Godzilla that we have at the aquarium. Let's say the octopus's beak is this big. We could take this octopus, which is, maybe about my size, and put a big long tube and have the octopus over here in one, like a holding container, and then put some food over here and some water on another side. That octopus can squeeze its whole body through its whole head, its whole, all 8 arms, all of its suction cups can get all the way through an opening if its beak can fit through it. Now, the beak of an octopus is just like the beak of a bird. And I'm wondering if I have any here that I might be able to show you. And I'm not sure that I do, but just picture what what a bird beak looks like. And then if we can find one. Oh, looks like we did find one. This right here is like what the beak of an octopus looks like. I think this one was actually from a squid, but it's very, very similar. So they have this little part that sticks out, like the top part of the beak, the bottom part of the beak, and that's what they use to eat their food. Now, this is hard, but if an opening can fit their beak through it, like I said, their whole body can fit through it. So they are experts in flexibility and squeezing into tight spaces. Okay, so where is the mouth? Let's get back to that question. Let's see if we can take a closer look. Think about, we know that that opening, the siphon on the side, that was not the mouth. But where do you think the mouth might be? Any idea? Well, if you look in the center right here, where all of the arms come together, that's where the beak would be. Now, it's not always sticking out. Like a bird beak, you can always see. It's always right there. But the octopus can keep its beak kind of, it's more inside of its mouth. So even other times that I've been looking at an octopus in front of, up on the window like this, I'm looking, I'm like, I want to see, are they going to show their beak? Usually I can't see it. It all just comes together. It's all in the shadows there, so you can't really see the beak. But that's where it's located. So right where all the arms come together. All right. They also, another question was, do they have good vision? And actually they do. They have pretty good vision. But what's really amazing is that they don't have color vision. Their color vision is not very good. Because you might wonder, well, how is that possible? Because don't they camouflage? Don't they change their color to match their surroundings? And yes, they do. And we don't totally understand how they're able to do it so well without color vision. But they are able to very effectively match the patterns that they can see around them and even move with the water, like the shadows of the water. As the sun is coming through, it creates these sort of shadows on the surface, but also on the ocean floor. And they will just kind of move their bodies along with the shadows as they're moving to make them blend in very, very well and hide very effectively in plain sight. So you could be looking right at an octopus and not even know it because it looks kind of like a rock. And did you notice also these bumps that are on the octopus? So they can change the texture of their skin. Not only can they change the color to help match their surroundings, but they can also change the texture of their skin. So they can be very smooth, or they can even create these little bumps. So this is a little bumpy right here, but they can even get more, or they can get bumpier than this because they can cause them to almost like spike up. They have these special little areas of their body called papillae. Now let's go ahead and watch this octopus and see what happens as it changes not only its color, but do you see the texture changing here too? Yeah, so it's sticking up and it's blending in with this coral reef around it. And it does that very, very effectively. So obviously we can see this octopus very clearly now. It's red, we could see it. But if we weren't here when we saw it change color and we were just swimming by and just looking down into the shadows, the bottom of the ocean, it might be a little bit more difficult for us to spot that animal because it's blending in so well with the color and also the texture of their skin and being all those. Oh, here's a great example. Did you even see that one at first? So yeah, it's easy to see now, but this is one that was camouflaging. We'll watch this again. Do you see the octopus? Wow, not until they change their color is it very clear for us to see. So they're very effective at matching that environment, even without color vision. So we're still learning more, but those papillae are able, what they are, these muscles that are all in a circle, and as they contract them or expand them, relax them, it causes the skin around it, those little bumps to go up and to go down to help them match their surroundings. Okay. We have some more questions. Annabelle and Devin want to know, do they have any predators? And yes, they do have predators. So an octopus, what we feed our animals, or what we feed them tend to be things like crabs and things like that they can use their tentacles for, or their arms and their suction cups for, to bring them up to their mouth. And then you think, well, then what would eat an octopus? And they have been known to even eat fish, and they've been known to eat sharks, but sharks also have been known to eat octopuses. One of the cutest animals here at the aquarium, well, one of my favorites, they're covered in hair. They're very short hair. California sea lions, they eat octopuses as well. And we've actually gotten pictures of some sea lions when we've been out on whale watching boats, that we've even seen them with octopuses in their mouth, which is kind of funny. So sea lions can eat octopus. Sharks have been known to eat them. Various types of fish. I'm trying to think if there's any obvious ones that I'm not thinking of right now. If anyone think of any? Sea lions are the main ones I'm thinking of, and fish and sharks in general. I'm sure probably dolphins could too. But they're very good at hiding. So as long as an octopus can hide, they can avoid their predators pretty well. But yes, they do have predators. Just about every animal does. There are things that they are predators of and things that they are preyed upon by. So another question was, what does the wrinkly part of an octopus do? What is the function? So we were talking about that mantle part that's being all wrinkled, and these are the papillae that allow them to blend in, and also it might even help them in getting through the water. Having actually a little bit of that roughness can sometimes help in moving through the water, believe it or not. So those are the papillae and their skin. It's actually very, very it's kind of smooth. Does have a little bit of a slimy feel, a little bit when you touch an octopus, but they're very, very strong. They have very, very strong muscles. The first time I touched our giant Pacific octopus, I was amazed because it was soft to the touch on the outside, like the skin part here. It's very, very hard, but their muscles are so strong. It felt like it was like a really soft covering over steel, like something really, really hard, because they are very strong animals. And those suction cups are also very, very strong. They can hold up to 10 pounds of pressure. They can hold something 10 pounds. They could do 10-pound weights with each and every suction cup that they have. And they can have up to 2,000 suction cups on their bodies. So that's a lot of weight that they could be lifting. An octopus is much stronger than I am. I would not want to try to beat one in an arm wrestling contest. How many species of octopus are there? And believe it or not, there are approximately 300 species of octopuses. And here's one of them right here that I mentioned earlier, the two-spot octopus. It's got a spot here on its side, on this side of the body, and also a spot on the other side of the body. And these are very commonly found around here in Southern California, and they only get about this big. But one thing that might surprise you about octopuses is that they don't live very long. So they might live, some of them, only 2 years. The giant Pacific octopus, one of the bigger ones, maybe 4 years, 2 to 4 years, something like that. Maybe as much as 5, but that would be really long for an octopus. So octopuses only live a short period of time. And then Will says, as a scientist, what is your favorite fact or discovery that you have learned about octopus? Ooh, that's a good question. Let's see, my favorite thing, I really think one of the things that I think is fascinating is the fact that they can taste their food through their suction cups, because that's so unusual and so unlike anything that I can imagine or think about. It's so unlike, our experiences as people, to be able to taste everything you touch. But I also think it's pretty fascinating that they don't have very good color vision, but yet they can camouflage so well to their surroundings. So I think that, and I happen to share both those already in this class, but I think that those are kind of the most fascinating things. Although I also think it's pretty cool that they can squeeze their whole body and be so flexible to fit in through any opening, even with as long as their beak can fit through it. In fact, I have a quick story about a two-spotted octopus that we used to have several years ago. And we had to take this octopus and take it from its one holding tank where it was, and then we would bring it out on the floor and show it to people. Now, when I say on the floor, I don't mean like just crawling around on the floor of the aquarium. I mean, we had a separate little aquarium that we would fill up with water and put this octopus in, and then we would wheel it out to people so that they could get a closer look of a two-spotted octopus, closer look at a two-spotted octopus. That's what I'm trying to say. And I happened to do this one day with a net that happened to have a hole in it. Now, of course, nets have lots of little holes in it, but this one had a hole that was probably about this big. I didn't think it would be an issue. I didn't have to move the octopus very far. So one day I scooped up the octopus, and as I was carrying it over to where this aquarium tank was, I looked and I realized that about half of the octopus was already, it had put one arm through that opening and was squeezing the rest of its body all the way out. And I wasn't going to be able to make it all the way over to where I was transferring it to. So I had to go back, put it back in, and then go find another net that didn't have a hole in it because they're very good at escaping. Oh, and I'm so glad I started thinking about that because it reminded me of a question that we didn't get around to answering about how do you weigh an octopus. So when we weigh an octopus, we actually put them into a crate that does have a bunch of little kind of tiny holes around it, but it's, or I should say it's a basket. It's kind of like a laundry basket that we put the octopus into, and then we set that on the scale. So we already have the scale zeroed out. There we go. So we know how much this basket weighs already. And then we have to have some holes in it because otherwise if we just get the octopus, it's going to bring a whole bunch of water with it too. And we don't want to be weighing the water. So we need to be able to let that water drain out. And then we put it on a scale and we have to make sure we do it quickly enough that the octopus doesn't start putting all of its arms out between these little holes. Now, of course, these holes are too small for the beak to fit through, so it's not really a problem for this octopus to escape from this, but they could easily reach their suction cups up and their arms up over the edge. And then if you've ever tried to balance something, if you put too much on one side of a laundry basket like that, you know what's going to happen? It's going to tip over. So we have to make sure that the octopus doesn't start moving around too much that it starts tipping over and making it more difficult for us. But yes, this is how we weigh an octopus. We have them in a basket, put them on the scale. It's a digital scale. It tells us how much they weigh. And then when we're ready, we can bring them out. And then we just set that basket back down into the water. And when the octopus is ready, it will move on out. So this is, I believe this was Gumball. This was our octopus before Godzilla, or a couple before Godzilla. And it was just kind of, this was a kind of a neat opportunity for us to take a picture to show people how we weigh the octopus. So yeah. Okay, and then Isabella says, can octopus learn tricks? Oh, they actually are very intelligent animals. And so they probably could learn some tricks, or as we would call them, behaviors. And they do. They definitely learn that when there are certain things that when it's time for feeding, they know what the cues are, and they know that when a light comes on in the room, that maybe an Aquarius is coming in there to feed them. When they see our grabbers that go down, because we lure them out when it's time to feed, we'll put some grabbers down there with their food so that they can see it and smell it. And then this one actually is kind of fun because this is what we call enrichment. So while we don't necessarily train the animals to do a particular thing for us, the octopus that we need them to do, because oftentimes in training an animal, you train them for what we call husbandry behaviors, which allows us to take better care of them. So I guess in a way, even getting that basket, they know that they're going to get lots of reward when they do something like a husbandry activity and getting weighed, so that they associate that with good things. So in that way, it can be trained. But what we like to do is give them fun things to think about and play with. So we give them toys, and many times we'll put their food inside of a toy, even one that you might use for your pet at home. We might hide some food in between there and see if they can, or close it up and see if they can figure out how to open it up. In fact, we even had an octopus that we put food in a jar, and the octopus was able to unscrew that lid with their suction cups and take the lid off and reach in and grab their food. But I think we've gotten, oh, and James also said, are there colors they can't change into? And actually, James, that's a really good question that I don't know the answer to. I'm not sure, because so many octopuses can be so many different colors. I don't remember ever seeing one with a green color to it, but that doesn't mean they can't do it. So it's a good question that I have to say, I'm not sure the answer to that one. So they're very talented. I'm just not sure if there are specific ones. I'm sure different octopuses are limited in their different displays that they can do. Probably not every octopus can turn all the different colors, but I just don't know if you collectively put them all together, if there's a particular color that none of them can turn into. So that's a topic for some more research. I'll have to look into that. Thanks, James, for the question. But we are past our time, so I hope that you enjoyed learning a little bit more about the octopus, or the amazing invertebrate. It's also called a cephalopod, means head foot, because their way of getting around, their siphon is attached to their foot. Their head is attached to their foot. It's kind of weird. Their siphon's kind of like their foot because that's how they get around. So these amazing invertebrates, the cephalopods, the octopus, fascinating creatures. Thank you so much for joining us today as we explored more and learned more about them. And again, if you had any other questions, you're welcome to email us and we'll get back to you. But thank you for joining us and have a wonderful day. Bye.